Alright guys, can I get a show of hands here? Whoever has played the game of badminton just in your backyard with friends or family? See a few back there. Okay, here's a better question. How many of you have ever played badminton as a competitive sport against your friends or family? Anybody? Well, the crickets play. Okay, so I am an amateur badminton player here locally in Chattanooga. I participate in the Chattanooga Badminton Open, which is an annual badminton tournament. By the end of our discussion here today, you guys will see that badminton, though it can be a fun game, it is also a very competitive sport. You can earn a lot from it. It takes as much skill as tennis, football, any of the other major sports that we have here in America. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So the first main topic to explain is how and when badminton started. So back in 1834, British owned India, which is basically where badminton is prime time here. Some of the best players in the world come from India. It's an overseas primary sport. But in 1834, military officers actually played this game. It was called battledore and shuttlecock. You guys know the shuttlecock is it's a birdie or a shuttlecock. They can be nylon. The tournament players use, they're called goose feathers. Kind of expensive, but this is what they use. Shuttlecocks were different back then. But it consisted of two men with rackets, and they were not rackets that had the netting on them like we see now. It was rackets that just had a solid, unopened panel, and they would just kind of bump it back and forth, and that was fun to them. There was a magazine in 1863, it's called Cornhill. That was the main Victorian magazine over in England, and they described the game as battledore and shuttlecock, played on two sides, hitting the shuttlecock back and forth over a net suspended some 5 feet from the ground. So to some of you guys that sounds familiar. There's still somewhat of that same regulation today, though there have been a lot of changes. The net is 5 feet off the ground. Some of you guys may have not even known that. You just thought, oh well, you can just hit it back and forth, that's all it consists of. That's not necessarily the case though. Just like every big sport, it has regulations. Now these same officers who started the game of battledore and shuttlecock, some years later in the early 1900s, they started what's called the Badminton Association of England. These are the guys, this group, that actually gave the regulation of badminton. The types of regulation that they gave stated that when you play in tournaments, you can either play singles, you can play doubles, or you can play mixed doubles. Now does everybody realize that that sounds a lot like tennis, right? And this sport, what we're trying to explain, is just as competitive as tennis. Another set of regulations that they did, there were requirements for the birdies or the shuttlecocks, requirements for the rackets, also the court dimensions. As you can see up there, there's a couple of different lines there. It kind of looks like it's hard to read, but once you start playing, it's not so bad. Basically with doubles, you can play the entire court, but when you serve, that back line, which is 2.5 feet inside the far line, if you hit it beyond that on your serve, you're out. You have to forfeit your serve. If you play singles, that 1 foot 6 inch sideline tag line, that is out for you. So the court is narrowed down a little bit when you play for singles. So the next thing that we want to look at is, where do people play competitively? Here in Chattanooga, there's not many places. You can go to Wyatt Recreational Center, which is in Brainerd, and you can actually play there. They open at random hours, kind of Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 10 or 10 to 11, something along those lines. But that's just here in Chattanooga. There are badminton clubs that are in high school, they're in universities all over the country. You'll really find them in larger cities, such as Knoxville, University of Tennessee. The actual Tennessee Vols, they do have a badminton team. They participate in the Chattanooga Badminton Open, as well as another large school here in just the southeast, which would be Vanderbilt. They have a very good badminton team. Also, the majority of competitive players and clubs, they live overseas in countries that it originated in. So China, India mainly, the best players in the world you'll find over there. They're the ones who typically win the larger events and things of that nature. Also, there's a recreational league, which is called the National Badminton League. You can actually sign up there. You can play professionally if you're credentialed for that, of course. You can play recreationally. You can sign yourself up to go play in tournaments which are local, regional for other areas and things like that. That's a good way that you can actually get exposure. You can have professional scouts there. It's a great opportunity to continue your career there. Also, you can actually make a career out of badminton, as crazy as that seems. But playing at schools or professional levels, the recreational league that we had just mentioned a few minutes ago through the National Badminton League, or at schools like University of Tennessee or Vanderbilt, you can actually get scouted from there. They can give you sponsorships, credentials, things like that, so you can play at that professional level. Also, the #1 badminton player in the world, he earns over $50 million per year. That's when he plays. Now that's not including even his sponsorships that he has from his sponsorships. So he's got several sponsorships for clothing, his rackets, his birdies, the products that he uses. So he makes a good chunk of change, and people don't seem to think that because it's not a large sport. But these players can definitely make a good salary, and they earn it too. Also, as we know, it's an Olympic sport. It's been an Olympic sport since 1992. I believe that it should have been there earlier, but that's okay. So we're getting a lot of exposure. There is an American badminton team, USA Badminton, or USA, the USA team. There's a badminton segment for that. If you play recreationally well enough, you play at these schools well enough, you can definitely get recognized to play at the Olympic level. And that's something that would be very exciting for any player, including myself as well. Also, like we had mentioned, brands and sponsorships. There are several major brands in badminton. The American ones, or the ones that American players see the most, is called Yonex. Yonex is like the Nike of badminton, or the Nike brand of badminton. And there's another major brand which is called Head. It's a tennis brand. It's also badminton, some other racket sports. That's like the Adidas of badminton. So they have major sponsorships, major brands, just like American football, tennis, baseball, things of that nature. So just a quick recap so we can kind of really pull it all together and understand why badminton is not just a game. So we learned that it has regulations, just like tennis. Going to just base it off that since it's a major sport, a major recognized sport. Also, there's career opportunity. It's an Olympic sport. Also, there are major brands and sponsorships. So those reasons alone is enough to make us aware that badminton, though it's a fun backyard game, people may not take it very seriously. It can also be quite a serious, quite an intense game, very competitive as well. Thank you guys for watching.